Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of Finance and Corporate Services Committee. We have a few items on the agenda of interest. First, I would ask if there's any disclosures of pecuniary interest. Not seeing any, we will move on to, could I get a mover for the consent items? Moved by Councillor Stretch. Any comments or questions on the consent items? Not seeing any. Those in favor? And opposed? And opposed. Very good. So we'll get to the first discussion item. That is the corporate policy update. And I believe there is a 5-minute presentation for this item. Ms. Fusco, when you're ready.
Good afternoon. I'm here to provide an overview of a comprehensive body of work that occurred across the organization over the past 12 months to review and propose updates to the City's Corporate Policy Manual. A corporate policy is created when Council's position on an issue should be part of a public record in keeping with open and accountable government. Previously, Council had approved a master policy to govern the process, criteria, and timely review of all corporate policies. In keeping with the master policy, policies should be reviewed every 3 to 5 years for legislation changes, court decisions, council decisions, and new strategies, practices, and technologies. The COVID-19 pandemic delayed policy reviews as staff prioritized the city's emergency response, so many were overdue for review. Recognizing the delay, staff took a holistic approach and conducted a lean review, which found that the existing policy maintenance system and templates was manual, cumbersome, and less transparent to staff, and the policy template was not user-friendly. To improve the overall policy review process, it is recommended that a new fillable form template be used, that legislative services provide training to staff engaged in policy development, and policy reviews be conducted through an equity-informed lens aimed to reduce barriers. As well, authority to the clerk to make minor edits, such as housekeeping changes to titles and language, where the content of the policy is left unchanged, is recommended. In partnership with staff across the city, 119 of the 185 policies that were due for review at the time were considered. A few policies required no changes and therefore were assigned a review date of the next 3 years. There were 16 policies identified that required minor amendments and 22 recommending to be repealed, which I will touch on further in the next few slides. A number of policies require major or substantial revisions, which are not part of this report. This is the first of many corporate policy reports as we strive to get back on track. The policies recommended for amendment are contained in Appendix B to the staff report as both a clean copy and a version with track changes. Amendments are generally minor in nature and focus on including definitions to provide context and a common understanding. For committee terms of reference, amendments provide clarity regarding recruitment, eligibility, term limits, reappointments, composition, and transparency of decision-making. Housekeeping edits pertain to using gender neutral language, reducing barriers, correcting department and divisions responsible, job titles, and addressing a new hydro entity. And lastly, legislative changes clarify Council's role, address the special powers and duties of the head of Council, the Code of Conduct best practices, as well as addressing illuminations and City Hall security procedures. The policies recommended to be repealed are contained as well in Appendix B to the staff reports. Previously, Council had supported a threshold to consider policy repeal on 4 grounds, noted on this slide here. There are 6 policies that are recommended to repeal that pertain to programs or funding that no longer exist. There are 9 policies to repeal that pertain to regulations or legislation already in place. There are 3 policies that conflict with another policy, and there are 4 policies that were found to be redundant or outdated. It also came to staff's attention that there are policies arising from legislative amendments to the Municipal Act that were not adopted. In accordance with Section 270 of the Act, the City is required to have a council and staff relations policy. Policy provisions are not prescribed, and through internal discussions, it was noted that many policies are existing that govern how council and staff interact, including the Code of Conduct, the City's Procedure Bylaw, the Employee Conflict of Interest Policy, as well as policies required under the Occupational Health and Safety Act, amongst other legislation. The proposed policy reiterates Council's commitment to those policies and outlines existing mechanisms to address situations of non-compliance. It models similar policies to the region of Waterloo, the town of Oakville, the city of Brampton, and the city of Oshawa. And in accordance with Section 270 of the Act, the pregnancy and parental leave for members of council also is required. It did arise from work undertaken by former Kitchener councillor Kelly Galloway Seelock to advocate to the province to provide a clearer understanding of the legislative parameters for members of council with respect to maternity and parental leave. A pregnancy or parental leave for a member of council is an absence of 20 consecutive weeks or less as a result of a member's pregnancy, the birth of a member's child, or the adoption of a child by the member in accordance with Section 259 of the Act. Leaves longer than 20 weeks do still require council authorization to prevent the seat from being declared vacant. The policy recognizes a member's right of council to take the leave for the member's pregnancy and recommends that a standardized form be provided, which gives clarity for both parties on which, if any, duties they would like to maintain while on that leave. It does model the provisions in place at the City of Waterloo, as well as the Town of Oakville. So in summary, the work undertaken to date has involved a comprehensive review of many policies, highlighting some that required minor amendments and/or those that are required to be repealed. Due to existing work plans, some policies requiring minor amendments were not able to be accommodated for this review and will come forward as part of a subsequent report. Major or substantial reviews will also come forward at a later date. Staff do recommend approval of the directions in the report to ensure the city's corporate policy manual provides consistent guidelines for the creation, management, retention, and approval of corporate policies for the city that are publicly available.
Who would have guessed our clerk would have finished with like a second to spare? Are there any questions, Ms. Fusco? Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for this report. I just wondered if you could give us some examples of administrative policies that, let's say, have been passed in the last few years that by council that would not have been if this policy had been updated.
So through the chair, I don't have a list of administrative policies readily available, but in the master policy, there are criteria. Those policies that are administratively approved by our leadership team would not be policies that would affect the citizens at large, that would not involve spending of revenues. So I believe an example recently that was approved administratively was the disconnecting from work policy. It was required by legislation that a city approve, the employer approve, which was deemed to be the city. So while it didn't come to council for approval, it was an information item, but that's the type of policy that administratively could be approved by the leadership team.
So they would still come to us as information items, but we wouldn't be voting on them.
So through the chair, not necessarily, depending on the level of information sharing required. I believe that one was brought forward to council because there is an impact after hours should staff receive emails and correspondence from council, but where the administrative policy is more general in nature, those would not come forward to council. They would be simply approved by the leadership team.
Okay. My second question had to do with Heritage Kitchener on page 78 of the document. It says one member of council. And I know, well, for the last 6 years, we've had 2 members of council on the committee. I just wondered if that should be changed to 2, or if it could be 1 or 2, maximum 2, or maybe that's not something that needs to be adjusted, but I just wondered if that was something that...
Which committee?
Heritage.
So through the chair, the terms of reference, there's no requirement for council not to over-appoint. So perhaps at the time there were more members of council than the one that showed interest in Heritage Kitchener. So there's nothing stopping 2 members from serving on Heritage Kitchener. If we find that that is a long-standing practice, we would certainly look to amend the terms of reference. Those are typically done before around the start of the term. So if through that appointment process there was only 1 member, then that 1 member's name would stand. But certainly if there were more, we could consider those and seek to amend the terms.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions. I just note that it was nice to see the acknowledgement of former Councillor Galloway Seelock's motion with respect to maternity leave. I remember when I was first on council, Councillor Galloway sat right where I sit now, and I was sat one over, and she often brought her baby into chambers, and I got to say it worked amazingly well. Like, not only did it work out for her, but it was a nice little reminder, especially on some of those more challenging days. You look down and see what we are here for. Anyway, no one else in the queue, so those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Okay, the final item for Finance and Corporate Services is the Conrad Center for the Performing Arts, and kicking things off will be, oh, pardon me, I did not have a mover. Can I get a mover? Mayor Verbanovich. And do we take the vote? Let's retake the vote. Those in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Duick, when you're ready.
Culture and entertainment for the City of Kitchener. I'm pleased to share the findings of this report with you here today. Before I begin, I wanted to extend some thank yous first to Mayor and Council for the opportunity to present. Your strategic vision for the Culture and Entertainment Unit is reflected in this work. It's been a major driver, so thank you for your encouragement and your support. I'd also like to thank the delegates who are here presenting today. There are 4, and I believe that insight that they're going to share will provide some depth to our conversation. Also would like to thank the community and the presenters who all participated in the surveys. There were 2 of them, which I'll speak to. And this has set the stage that the Conrad Center is deeply cared for in our community. Some context for the report. The CCPA, or the Conrad Center, is a deeply complex venue with very unique features, similar to other professional level performing arts centers in the region, such as Center in the Square. And one of the key features is that when presenters of performing arts go into the Conrad Center, they require additional support to operate within that space. And so it's that sets the stage again for this timeline. January 2021, the Conrad family donates the venue to the city, and we as the city promise to bring that space to life. In October 2023, the city assumed operational responsibilities when the Symphony declared bankruptcy, and Greenlight Arts was approved by council at that time to temporarily operate that space on a fee-for-service. In December 2023, when the Culture and Entertainment Division was created, along with my role, council mandated that our team develops a new operating model for the CCPA, and we're completing that process here today. On the screen is 2 key survey results. We had the opportunity to survey audience members, past and present. That generated 280 responses on Engaged Water the Region. And then arts and creative industry staff reached out to presenters, both past and hopeful presenters of the space, which resulted in 17 responses plus 8 in-person follow-up meetings. Key for this truly is that on the audience side, that the community is looking for emerging artists and local performing arts groups to be showcased. And on the presenter side, the idea that costing is critical and that the calendar be a transparent booking process are some of the key themes. And some of the other key themes are layered into the rest of the presentation. In terms of a proposed mandate, there's this dream that the Conrad Center can be a cultural hub. And this was really re-emphasized when we were speaking with the Conrad family. And as these mission steps, which are totally formed by the feedback from the community and the presenters, I believe we can do that. And although it's not set in stone, it is important for a proposed mandate to be in place as the Conrad Center launches into its new operation steps. The meat and potatoes of the report, if you will, is generated by the operating model analysis. And so from a venue management perspective, looking at the industry management best practices, there's 3 operating model types: nonprofit, commercial, and city. City-led. And if you look at the city's cultural-owned venue space portfolio, Center in the Square and Registry Theatre are both nonprofit-led, and the Odd's an example of a city-led culture venue. The path of the presenter analysis was key to this report in that regardless of event type, dance, film, comedy, presenters of performing arts follow the same path. And so weighing the path of the presenter process against the operating models, it was clear that the city-led operating model best reflects the needs and presenters and the community for the unique conditions and realities at the Conrad Center. And that highlight's not a typo, it's on purpose. This particular city-led operating model result may not necessarily be reflected at other venue types, but for the Conrad Center, a city-led operating model is best. In terms of financial analysis, a similar process where looking at those 3 financial models, listed 1, 2, 3 at the top of the slide, were weighed against the considerations, those 4 considerations in the second part of the slide. And truly, the hybrid financial model accomplishes a key balance. It supports presenters by providing the necessary human resources to support presenters, but also balances the cost to tax base by starting with a minimal number of staff. If council were to vote in favor of a city-led operating model, city staff would learn about the nuances of the operation, which would then allow for an opportunity for sustainable growth. Oh, I almost missed my favorite slide. All right. The relationship, this is really the key. This triangle relationship between the cost to operate, which is high for the Conrad Centre due to its professional performing arts status, the accessible rental cost, which is desired by the presenters, and the number of seats, that between 300 and 400 seats is challenging, because the number of seats required to pay an accessible rental cost is key. And so this is really where the city needs to come in and step and provide support to the presenters. Looking at time, I'll skip to the end. This is a huge opportunity for the city to balance a number of different needs. Balancing the needs of presenters and a reasonable tax risk against the city subsidy. But also, more important, we have an opportunity to create the Conrad and turn the Conrad into the home of emerging theater, emerging music, emerging dance, emerging film, and emerging comedy. And so in order to create this home, we need a place, and that place is the Conrad Centre. Thank you.
Thank you, County Mr. Duke, for your presentation. We will hold any questions until after we hear from the delegates, of which we have 4 total. The first delegate, I should just state first, you have 5 minutes to make your presentation. You'll hear a tone when there's 30 seconds remaining, just to give you an indication. The first delegate is Sam Varteniuk from JM Drama. Good afternoon.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Sam from JM Drama. We run the Registry Theatre. And I just want to start off by saying that I recognize and I acknowledge that this committee really cares about arts and culture. And that's appreciated. That hasn't gone unnoticed. You wouldn't have engaged in a process that would have seen the creation of a new director position, hiring venue oversight and marketing support. So I appreciate the careful and long-term planning that's going on here. I've already benefited a lot from that process, hanging out with Jeremy and talking with the other venue managers. I've learned a lot about the differences between the Registry, for example, and the Conrad Centre. I've long suspected that what works at the Registry doesn't necessarily scale up to the Conrad, and after hanging out with Matt and Karen and the other folks at the Centre and the Square and the Odd, I can confirm it's a different animal. There's a lot more moving parts and requires a different kind of attention. So I'm here to say that I think what Jeremy recommends in his report is fine in terms of a recommendation. I don't mean to be tepid or lukewarm about it. I guess I just want to underscore that it's a foundation and that foundations are not supposed to be flashy and solve all the problems. They're there as something solid upon which we build. And I guess I wanted to share the few insights that I do think transition from what we're doing over at the Registry and that I think are going to be relevant as we take next steps at the Conrad. It's 2 things, but really it comes down to one thing, sort of different sides of the same coin. It's a slow and careful process to build this thing, and so I would encourage patience when it comes to that. I know it's really tempting to look at metrics for success like rental revenue, like audience numbers, which translate into ticket revenue. And I'm not trying to say we don't like money over at the Registry Theatre. We understand that you need it to exchange for goods and services. But trying to run before you walk, I just think that we've tried that a couple times in this community. We have a sense of how big we are and what we want from our Arts and Cultural Centre, and sometimes we're in a bit of a hurry to get there, and we skip over some important steps. To that end, I have a more specific recommendation of a metric, because I like metrics too. So I would encourage you to make as important, if not more important, than revenue from rental or audience numbers, days of use. Now, days of use can be a bit of an esoteric thing. There's ways to sort of quantify it and say, this constitutes a day of use. But I think that should be the number one priority, is to get that space hopping and to get people feeling like it belongs to them. This is something we say at the Registry a lot, is that it's not our theatre. The theatre belongs to the community and to the people who live in it. We're just there to make sure that there's fair and equal access to it, to make sure everybody's sharing, and to make sure that the place is well taken care of. So yeah, I would encourage sort of that disposition as we move forward, as we're putting together the leadership team of the venue. Because at the end of the day, and I'll speak from a personal point of view here, when I drop a lot of money on something and I reflect back on it years later, it's usually not the dollar amount that ends up making me decide whether or not it has been successful. It's how much use I've gotten out of the thing. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much. There are a couple questions for you. First is Mayor Rabinovich.
Thanks a lot. And first of all, Sam, thanks for for coming in today. And thanks for all the great work that you and all the folks at JM Drama do to operate the Registry Theatre for many years now, and just make it a really cool place in our community. I guess the one main question I have, and you know, thanks for your suggestion, particularly the metric. I think, you know, looking at data is important, and you know, days of use is an important one. As you look at this report, I guess my question would be, what's sort of the thing that stands out for you as sort of the best point in the report? And recognizing that, you know, we're on a journey and things are iterative, as you sort of look forward in terms of things that aren't in the report, but that in a future version of a report, you'd maybe like to see, what would that be?
Yeah. I think what I wanted from the report after reading it was some kind of community engagement piece. And that's where I feel like, and I've spoken with Jeremy about this, but when the hiring happens for the 3 roles that he recommends to operate the Conrad, now, forgive me, I don't understand all the ins and outs of municipal HR policy, but as much as we can, get the community involved in who will be operating that space, because that kind of buy-in is going to go further than almost anything else in terms of connecting or reconnecting with some of the arts groups who feel disenfranchised by the infrastructure that's available to them at this point. But, you know, I guess what I like best about the report is that it's simple and it's foundational, and it leaves room for organic development of things. I'm not a fan of any kind of startup initiative that shows massive amounts of money for. When we were talking about 44 Gaukel, there was a plan to put in a recording studio and all sorts of other very expensive infrastructure out of a well-meaning sense to support the arts. But the thing is, a lot of emerging artists are a little scared of big, flashy new gear like that. And plus, it raises our sort of liability sensitivities around, now that we have all this expensive gear, we better have doors and security systems that lock, and we better limit entrance, we better make sure somebody we're paying is there all the time. This just adds up. And the margin is so thin for artists. Really, we're not talking about sustaining themselves in the early stage. We're talking about a catalyst of seeing that there's money left after the enterprise to encourage them to do more. So I see room in the report and the recommendations to do that, and I think that's, from my perspective, one of the keys to feeling like we made good decisions here, and 3 to 5 years from now, looking back and saying, that place is hopping.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for coming, and thank you for what you do. I just wondered, you know, for, well, my benefit and others, could you just describe maybe the audiences that you target at the registry versus what would be targeted at the Conrad Centre, and sort of how they're different?
I have to confess here, I'm really not very good at marketing. I'm really not a good capitalist, you know? We're very grassroots. My audiences are the people who the programming resonates. When I find a partner like Jack Cole, who does Folk Night at the Registry and has done for, you know, over 15 years, Jack brings a whole crew of people with him. So, you know, yeah, I want to connect with the audience, but the first point of contact is Jack. And the same is true. I'm working with Ryan over on Aaron Street, who has a little music studio out of his house, to do an open jam night. More valuable to me than money, and again, I want to be clear, I understand the value of money. We care about it at the registry, but the most important resource I have is energetic, enthusiastic, motivated people who want to produce. And I see the number one goal right now is to train producers. I think the YouTube and online generation have when I was coming up, producing was a thing we didn't really understand. Producers were people dressed all in black in the back, and if you saw them, something had gone wrong. Now everybody understands what producing is, and the hip-hop music community producers are honored as one of the creators. I think my approach has been to get behind the producers and their audiences. So I'm not targeting independent audiences. I'm connecting with people who themselves have audiences and getting behind them. And that can look different depending on the scenario. Some people just want to rent, and they want me to be hands-off, and I can do that. Some people want a lot of help, and I can do that too. Kitchener has a strong entrepreneurial, leave me alone, I'll figure it out by myself spirit. And I think it's important to allow that, of course, with, protocols for safety and, an awareness of liability, but within those boundaries to get behind the people. And I find doing that brings diverse people to my theater in a way that I could not do the industrial way by data and metrics and pitching demographically to audiences.
And certainly there's a niche for what you do, so thank you.
Thank you. There do not appear to be any further questions. Thank you so much. Next, we have Julie Hall, one of our members of our Arts and Culture Advisory Committee.
Thanks so much for having me. I was appointed by Chair Maggie Lamb to deliver a statement that we prepared together that was approved by the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee. So today I'm speaking to you as a representative of ACAC. Our members have a wide range of experiences and backgrounds as performing and visual artists, presenters, and event producers, as well as business owners and administrators. We strongly support the proposed operating model for the Conrad Centre for the Performing Arts, as well as the proposed vision, mission, and values for the venue. The staff report takes into account, through a variety of community outreach, which goes beyond what has been officially documented, the complex and rich history of the arts in Kitchener. It accurately captures the business and operational needs of presenters of theaters, concerts, comedy, dance, and other live performing arts, and succinctly captures the barriers and challenges that such arts organizations face when trying to take their productions to the next level. Should this motion be passed, we look forward to supporting the redevelopment of the Conrad Centre into a performing arts hub in our advisory capacity and help realize the Conrad Centre's potential to positively contribute to the economic health of Kitchener. We are excited for this vision, and we encourage Council to take the important first step by supporting this motion. It's the end of the statement.
Thank you so much. No, there do not appear to be any questions. Thank you for bringing that on behalf of the committee. Much appreciated. And the final delegate, I understand they're presenting together Matt White and Karen Lowerson from Greenlight.
Each get 5 minutes, correct?
Certainly.
Great. Thank you very much. My name is Matt White. I am a co-founder of Greenlight Arts and the current artistic director of the theater. I had my first gig at the Conrad Centre for the Performing Arts over 20 years ago as a member of Theatre and Company when they built a swimming pool in the stage, and it was the Metamorphoses. It was great. Back then, it was called the King Street Theatre Centre. It was the dream of Theatre and Company, a regional theater that produced a mix of thought-provoking work and more family-friendly material. From the moment I stepped into that space, I was in awe. It is an amazing theater space. I was fresh out of theater school, and here I was in my hometown in this space that you could build sets, you could make costumes, you could rehearse, and you could perform all under one roof. It was unheard of. It was unthinkable at the time. It was amazing. All with the support of Councillor Jim Weidman, the Spatzel family, and the family of Warnock McMillan. They invested in this purpose-built theater, and I'm happy to see how it is still, still here. It's gone through a lot, much like this city. The identity of the space, how it's used, has shifted, but it's something truly special, and I'm proud to be here to talk about it. and its next steps. First of all, I want to thank the Conrad family for donating it to the city and choosing art over making it a parking lot or another condo or something else. Secondly, I would like to thank Corey Bloom for taking a chance on GLA when things went sideways with the KW Symphony. That was one of the most difficult times, and Corey was truly incredible to work with. You're thoughtful, caring, transparent, and fair. I can't thank you enough. The trust you put into us was immense, and I'm really proud of everything that we've accomplished in nearly a year. Not only keeping the lights on, but start to sort out how all of this could work moving forward. How can the space be more financially accessible? How can the space be even more active and engaged with the community? How can we get a lighting board that was built in this century? Andrew, we're going to work on that. Now, you might be thinking, Matt, why wouldn't GLA want to keep everything status quo and continue in this work as operator working with the city? It's a great question. Obviously, I care about the space a lot. But there are three main reasons why I believe what Karen and I believe that Jeremy and his team have put together is the right path forward. One, we always knew that this was going to be a temporary solution, as Jeremy pointed out in his report. That we needed to hold down the fort, as it were, to ensure that the space remained open and active until the city could put together a more comprehensive plan. More importantly, the second reason is because Karen and I have always felt the space would truly succeed with an independent, impartial entity leading the way. An entity that wouldn't need to prioritize its own needs, financially and otherwise. An entity that could truly put the community first. The community of artists and audiences. And so who better than the city of Kitchener? This wonderful city, the city that I am proud to be from, that I'm proud to have come back to, a city that recognizes the power of art and culture and entertainment as an economic driver, as a community connecting device, as a reason to live here, and a reason to go downtown and see all the great work happening in this city. So if you have this as a commercially led entity, well, they won't necessarily prioritize community. They have a lot of other things that they need to focus on. If you have a nonprofit-led, they will hopefully prioritize the community, but they still have their own mandate and mission to work that they are trying to accomplish. But city-led, that's a direct line to prioritizing and supporting this community of artists, which brings me to the third reason that I will try to whip through really quick, and it is Jeremy and Andrea and Andrew and Steve and the team at the city. They've been transparent with us through this entire process. We have built a sense of trust between all. It feels pretty special as a working environment. And I trust Jeremy and his team about how this is going to move forward with finding somebody to operate the space on behalf of the city. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. We do have some questions, but perhaps we'll wait till both of you made your presentations before we get into the questions. Good afternoon.
Hello, I'm Karen Lowerson. I'm the co-founder and managing director of Greenlight. I'm speaking in favor of Mr. Dewick's staff report proposing a new operating model. Matt and I have a lot of history with this building, as he said. We were actors with Theatre and Company in the early 2000s. Matt was an apprentice GM with Theatre and Company in 2007. The first GLA show at CCPA was in 2017. We moved in 2019 to work alongside the Symphony and help with rentals management. And we were there grieving alongside the KWS when they ceased operations in September 2023 and the future of the building was up in the air. And now we've been an interim operator of the building for nearly a year. When we were approached by Corey last September to step into this role, we were very aware of the magnitude of the task at hand. It was a big ask, and we were not sure whether the resources would be in place to pull it off. We are first and foremost cultural producers, not facilities management. And yes, yet we were uniquely positioned to help with the building because we knew it. We have a broad skill set as cultural producers, and we had been ironically mentoring in facilities management through 4 years of collaborating with the KWS. It was a daunting task, but it was also the right thing to do for the community. It was interim, and so we couldn't restructure our organization, but we could assemble a team, and we could carry the torch for the facility while the city decided what needed to be done. And I'm incredibly proud of what our team has done and what we've accomplished in the last 10 months. Rentals were never interrupted. We revamped procedures, we reorganized the rental fee to help make the space more affordable. We helped the city team research different venue operating models across Canada, and we've booked over 150 days in a very tricky transition period. And we did it all with part-time staff and a fee-for-service that was designed to recover cost. The hours that we've put in are the hours that we've billed and nothing more. It's been a lot of hard work, and it was the right thing to do. It's important to point out that we have not been an NFP-led organization conventionally. We don't independently run the facility, nor do we receive any revenue from third-party rentals. And this arrangement between GLA and the city is really unique, and it was always meant to be temporary. The relationship that we've built with the city has been one of deep trust and transparency and collaboration. We share the same values as the city, and we have the same vision for the building. We want the venue to succeed. We want the arts community to succeed. We are focused on the bigger picture of arts and culture in this city and the region. The Conrad Centre, as you've heard, is a very special building. It's flexible enough to scale up or scale down. It can accommodate emerging to professional artists. It's designed to nurture and elevate the performing arts. It's also large and it's dynamic. In order for it to run effectively, safely, to meet the needs of presenters, there is an ideal internal structure of staffing that's required. They need specialized skills, and we also need investment. It's a gem of a building, and it has a ton of potential. Our opinion of the Conrad Centre really hasn't changed since we moved here and started Greenlight in 2014. For this facility to reach that potential, to be improved, to operate sustainably, to serve the arts community, to be impartial while doing it, to catalyze the well-being of residents while also catalyzing the economy, the facility should be run by the city and partner with non-for-profits. The pro-con list for each of the proposed models that Jeremy put forth demonstrates that a city-led facility has the greatest positive outcome overall. So where does that leave GLA? Well, if you'll humor me, I really like analogies, so here's yours. The city is like an accomplished weightlifter. And when the CCPA needed carrying last fall, the city needed someone to help pick up some of that weight. And they asked GLA. And as it turns out, we're natural athletes, and we're actually pretty good at weightlifting too. And the city now has a really good plan for adding that weightlifting to their regular routine, and GLA can be there to spot, to cheerlead, while returning to the things that we do best, our superpowers. And it's nice to now confidently add weightlifting to our skill sets. Yeah? So we're pretty optimistic that the proposed mentorship piece from the staff report will likewise evolve from deep trust and transparency and collaboration. It's been hard work, but it's been an honor to act as the interim operator during this period of 10 months, and we'll continue to do everything we can to leave it better than when we found it so that it can benefit as many people as possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your presentation. We're going to take some questions now first. Councillor Johnson, question?
Yes, thank you, Chair Davey, and thank you, Matt and Karen. It's always amazing to listen to the two of you. I mean, I just want to say, wow, just wow about your combined presentation. And I do believe in you as weightlifters, as people who run facilities. I've seen you both in action, and I know that you can do anything and everything at the same time, because I've seen you in action. What I wanted to ask was to build, Matt, on your comments about economic development and about arts as a driver in our community. Can you expand upon that, please?
Yeah, I believe that the arts and culture is a vital resource, and this is such a great investment. Investing in that space is investing in the future vibrancy of this community. Being able to not only invest in providing access to local artists and creating and enhancing the local artistic ecology and the environment, but also attracting acts from outside of the region to the Conrad Center to consistently bring people downtown. I see the arts, culture, and entertainment as a lifeblood. It's a reason for living. It's a reason for escape, and it's a reason for the work that we do is a reminder of life, a reminder of how to connect, communicate, but ultimately it's a way to bring people together so that they can also spill out and go to restaurants and coffee shops and go and buy things at other things. Like it's a part of the equation of a healthy, vibrant economy.
I knew you would answer that incredibly eloquently, and you're right. It's not only bread, but it's roses too. Thank you. That's right.
Thank you, Councillor Stretch. Your comment or question?
Question and comment?
Question first. We'll hold off comments to the end. We have a few more in the queue. Go ahead.
Okay, great. So having attended the opening for the registry, I got a really good sense that they would like to, really work with artists, depending, not depending on what level they are, but really working with them to help launch the place and space for their use or their curated art or performance. And so do you see your theater or the Conrad Center as maybe a next step to go from registry to Conrad in the city?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the type of building that can bridge the difference between emerging and professional. So you can scale it up or scale it down. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I do think that if you are an emerging group, or even if you're used to having a certain scale of production and a certain number of audience members, and then you start to grow that capacity, it might be great to increase your audience numbers up to 300. It might be great to scale up your production design or to collaborate with other companies and create something larger. So it's a pretty important, it's kind of like being in a wardrobe where you have business casual, but you also have business and you also have your sweatpants. You have options, mm-hmm. and all of these outfits will be worn, but it's just what is the right outfit for the right occasion. Mm-hmm. So the Conrad the Conrad Center is a very unique building in that it can serve a lot of that in-betweenness. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
The right outfit for the right occasion. You do like analogies. Okay.
Always.
Councillor Chapman, question?
Yeah. So thank you for your presentations. So in the report it talks about the mentorship arrangement and program. Could you just elaborate a bit on what you see your role is within that capacity and where you see it going long term and what you hope to get out of it?
Sure, thank you. I hope it's okay to say that we are well liked by the city team, and we have felt very, very valued and recognized for the expertise about performing arts industry that we have. And we've also been very transparent about the work that's involved in actualizing this facility and what would be the best path forward for the most people. And the idea of mentorship started to evolve, and it is a little bit nebulous still because it is created in good faith and with a lot of faith and trust. So Greenlight, as a cultural producer, we have and we've been living this dichotomy too, because we've been operating the facility, but we've also been a rental client, following all the same procedures and rules, right? And we have the same needs as many other cultural producers here. We need access to calendar so that we can plan, so that we can do our work. We need access to affordable space so that we can do more of it or sustain what we want to do. We need, well, in our case, we need office space to accommodate our growing team. So how can we show value to a space while also making sure that our needs are met? There was mention earlier about how a lot of groups require a lot of production support because putting on events, dynamic events, is difficult, and there are not a lot of producers. Producing is something you often learn while you're doing it, as opposed to going to school for it. So I think that mentorship could look like some support to artists that request it. It could also be helping to bridge to, we speak art, so we can hopefully create a bridge to communities or a bridge to other arts companies to help them see the possibilities of their work at the Conrad. There are other things that I could muse about, all of which are fully made up in my head, but I do see the mentorship thing as a gesture of, wow, Greenlight, you have a lot of really cool things that you do, and that would be really helpful to this organism that is the evolving Conrad. Let's figure out a way to keep it going, but let's also be realistic about the operating model that's required to make sure that this thing goes well.
I think also, if I can just add really quickly, that I think mentorship, there's flexibility in how it really depends on the needs of the renter. So in some capacities, there will be organizations that don't need mentorship in the same way, right? Empty Space doesn't need mentorship, but what they might need is just some extra support, and whatever that would look like. So that might be like helping promote something, or it might just be helping with certain logistics of things, just troubleshooting, being another. I mean, one of the things that I loved about working at 44 Gaukel was about having more people to bounce ideas off of. And I think having an arts company that is based at the Conrad Center in whatever title it is just a great asset to not feel so alone. So often arts companies and artists can feel isolated, right? And so especially also if you have a more emerging independent artist who's taken a chance on that space, that could be a more traditional mentorship where it's like, okay, have you thought of this? Have you troubleshot, that aspect, that type of thing. So I think it can be a lot of various things depending on the needs of the renter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There's 3 people in the queue. Next up is Mayor Verbenovich.
Great. Thanks, Matt and Karen, for coming in, for the leadership that you're showing overall in our arts and culture community, and your collaboration with others to bring things to life, and also for stepping up when we needed some help with the building to continue on after the symphony left quickly. And thank you both for your presentation today. I guess my question to you, and it kind of builds on sort of the added suggestion that Sam made in his comments around sort of looking at metrics and looking at the piece around overall days or nights that things are busy. Wondering if you have any sort of thoughts or reflections on that, and just maybe any initial thoughts on the kind of trajectory we might be able to see around, bringing that facility to even more life than we've seen in the past year.
Yeah. As a little bit of a preamble, it's a very complicated matter, so I'm just going to pick at it very lightly. When the Symphony was the core operator of the Conrad Center, there were only a certain number of days that they could work with because they had to accommodate the Symphony. And they worked really hard to fill those days. And it is huge task to run rentals management, to foster relationships with clients, to figure all of that out and support events. And we had this serendipitous moment in 2019 where we said, we'd really like an artistic home. And they said, we'd really like some help with rentals. We went, okay. And then COVID happened. That happened. But in the time that we were there, our concentrated effort doubled the rate of use. It doubled the earned revenue. And then we entered into a very tricky transition period where the symphony left. And I think it's significant that despite the fact that it was a transition period and we were figuring things out literally as we were putting them down, and we still have completed 150 days. So I think that there is a desire to use the Conrad. There's a lot of appetite for being there, and we're slowly but surely figuring it out. We're slowly but surely letting the community know that they're welcome, they're invited, not that they're welcome, but that it is their space too. And so I hope that answers your question. Matt might have something to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the big things when we started the relationship with the symphony was also the work that we did with Emily and her team, and putting together the grant that it was wonderful. For 2 years, that helped open the door for a lot of companies that didn't have the same financial access. It removed a financial, or it maybe not have removed it completely, but it shrunk the barrier financially. And I think the more financially accessible the space can be, increase the activity, increase the local artistic engagement, bring in, I love the clause on page 17, I think, that talks about there being some money where, there might be some being able to program it. I think having a nice combination of programming, having a few outside things that are city, with the Way Back Festival or the Endless Summer, having more of those activities in there that helps make people in the region, in the city, know that this is a vibrant space. One of the most common refrains, from our last 5 years being in and around the space is how many times it was the first time someone had been in the theater, or they didn't even know it was a theater. And I think that's step one, is engaging, reminding people, introducing people to the theater. Step two, helping encourage local artists, arts organizations be in there. And to Sam's point, like looking at the activity level, and then eventually we'll see how many people. And I see it as like a 3 to 5 year, and all of a sudden, woo, it's bustling.
Awesome, and that's a great answer. Just to be absolutely clear, I think you guys have done great work in terms of that slow trajectory that you talked about, and it's noticeable, and people have commented on it, and sort of look forward to seeing that continue to grow, assuming this is approved today. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Up next is Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Davey. Thank you, Matt and Karen. You're close to the ground with all the groups that may want to use the Conrad Center. Do you feel there's a general acceptance of this, or are they good with this model as well, from what you've heard?
No, you go ahead.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
No, I think so. I mean, I think there's always going to be a period of building trust. I mean, I think that was a pretty familiar refrain in my remarks that, Corey took a chance initially. The symphony took a chance with us way back, and we built trust over this time. I don't think anything is immediately going to, there's going to be 50 million questions. Jeremy's going to have a bunch of emails, I'm sure. And that's okay. I think because there's a second T word that I've been talking about is transparency, right? This entire process has been overwhelmingly positively transparent. And I don't think that the community will not see that. It was the weirdest way of wording that. I think the community will see the transparency and they will appreciate the transparency and being involved in this process and hearing and seeing and knowing that it's the best interest of everybody moving forward. And I think that's what we focus on.
Okay, just one thing I wanted to touch on. It's not part of this report, but I want to pick up on what you said about the ability to have that meeting space to bounce ideas off of other people, and you had that at 44 Gaukel. Maybe down the road, would it be cool, beneficial to have that kind of space where there's other groups together in the same space?
Absolutely.
For sure.
I mean, there are many iterations of that elsewhere that we really admire. A bunch come to mind.
The Center for Social Innovation is a place that I worked in Toronto. I had a hot desk when I was the first time I was the producer general manager of a theater company in Toronto. And it was wonderful because you got out of your bubble and you were sharing a space and you could bounce an idea with someone who was not in arts or was in arts, you know, and it was wonderful. I think it could be a real successful down the road thing to be mindful of.
There's this really magical, very magical substance to everything that's kind of like being inspired in the moment. Like entrepreneurs need to be inspired in the moment, artists need to be inspired in the moment, city councilors need to be inspired in the moment, and that kind of invisible magic glue of getting people in the same space to share consciousness also is a way of eliciting that being inspired in the moment thing.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. 2 people in the queue. Councillor Singh.
Yeah, thank you for that. I do get inspired in the moment, but it's a difficult task of getting 5 other people to agree in that inspiration. So, you know, if I really reflect on this, looking at Center of the Square, looking at the museum, looking at the KW Art Gallery, looking at the Registry Theater, looking at the space that the city, I guess, has partnered at the Gaukel building. I mean, there's no limitation with the aspects of City of Kitchener's involvement in sponsoring and supporting arts and culture. Done. There's no argument there. Now, the Conrad Center enables us as strategic space of continuing on with that theme. The reason why I referenced the other points is there's significant burden financially on place of Kitchener citizens already, where we tend to provide arts and culture support for the entire region when comparing with the other municipalities. Now, I have confidence of, you know, the model, what staff are suggesting, and in your group, you know, with past record. But the end goal necessarily needs to be sustainability to some aspects. Can you reference or support a little bit more on that as to what you see as a vision, but more particularly where you might see some barriers? And I think a lot of times we go into things just really positive, but I think we have to be have some foresight to make sure that, you know, we are creating a successful model.
Interrupt me if you want, okay?
Yeah, go for
All
it.
right. This situation is circumstantial. This model I'm in support of works for the Conrad. I don't necessarily know that it works for other venues in other cities. If the Conrad Center were in a different city with more infrastructure, with more industry, it might work better with a non-for-profit-led organization because the resources are different, because the competencies are different. It's complex. I really do. I've looked at all the same research as the team. It's not a perfect solution. Every solution has a pro and con list, and it's not perfect because nothing is. But if you triage it for the best outcome and you go, what could stabilize it, what could offer it opportunity and structure, what could be impartial, and I think that's a really important piece too. Then over a shorter period of time with more certainty, it could become successful. It could book the days that it needs. It could attract the vibrancy and programming that it deserves. So I do think it's a circumstantial situation, but I do think it is the best option for long-term thinking about the space.
I think also, if I may, I think one of the other things is that how do we package the arts? How do we get people to know what's going on? How do we have a consistent messaging system? And I think the more consistent and united our message delivery can become, I think it will, for the first little while, it's going to be rough. It's going to be, there will be losses, I'm sure. But I believe that eventually, over time, and as the community becomes aware and as things get built around it, so like having a centralized area where we can go and find all the information that these different things are happening so that people can hear about Greenlight Arts and Empty Space and a random comedian that people may not have heard of before and a community theater company like KWMP and possibly Sloan or someone from out, like all performing between November and February.
Some of the biggest heavy lifting for arts organizations is that we don't have a lot of marketing power. So imagine if you had a city-led facility that could lend some marketing support, and then a huge cross-section of the population knows about your events. Because the programming is good, but the muscles to get it out there are not as strong. So that's another example of how it would help.
I really appreciate that. I'm done with my time, but I really didn't want to interrupt you because that's exactly what I did want to hear, that general roadmap and where I think the ability lies. I'll key back in. I think someone else says. So I had one more question, just a small one, or... So quickly, though, knowing that this is a 2-year commitment, or generally until 2026 June, is there in-between period that you think that we could encourage staff to provide a general update as to the performance, where it's leading, so that we can be a little bit ahead of any discussion we need to have of how it needs to be evolved or the continued support that's required of it?
Yes. Sorry.
Okay.
I think that's a great idea. I think that just also lends to the transparency. It supports, I love company meetings and checking in and being like, where are we? Where are we trying to go? Where is the end goal? And what do we need to refine?
Perfect. I'll ask staff on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ioannidis.
Thank you, Chair Davey, and thanks, Karen and Matt, for coming in. I guess my one question is, it's more of a point of clarification. Did you say last year we had the center 150 dates booked? That's very impressive. I didn't hear anyone move the recommendation. I'm prepared to move the recommendation and whenever provide some comments.
Thanks so much. Councillor Stretch, I have your comment, though? Okay, yeah, actually, we have to do questions of staff still as well. Councillor Deneau, question of the delegation, or? Okay, go ahead.
Thanks, Chair Davey, and thank you very much for coming in. I will admit I've not been to a show at Conrad Center. I will be there in December for The Little Mermaid with my family, so I've seen the registry at work. I've seen, obviously Center on the Square at work, and so I'm looking forward to taking in a show there. You mentioned marketing, so how do you market the shows? Is it up to the, like Mavis, is it Mavis Productions, or is it up to the Conrad Center, or is there a combination, or?
No, we are, how it operates right now is that we are truly facilitating the producer's vision, so providing technical support and a venue to do it in, but their marketing promotion, all of that is their responsibility.
And it goes, they are in charge of that themselves, so they want to market as much as they can or market as little as they want to.
Yes, so in Greenlight's case, because I can only speak to that, our marketing is very grassroots. It involves not a lot of paid advertising because it's very expensive. It involves a lot of word of mouth. It involves a lot of social media, and then partnerships, well-placed partnerships. And that is never enough. We are often in a situation where we have an amazing show, and we can really only afford, because it's a professional show, we can only afford to do it for 12 performances. And the week after it closes, that's when a whole bunch of people realize that there was a show. And in other cities, there are things like arts reviewers and established blogs, and there's a lot of media infrastructure there, and here there isn't. And so putting all of that heavy lifting on the companies themselves is not as effective as if there was some sort of mechanism to let people know about the things.
So would you say it's be really important to, along with the partnership you have with the city already, when the Center of the Square sends out their 6-month programming or they advertise it online, that there be would you like to see a little subsection on the Center of the Square website that highlights some of the shows that are either coming up the registry, I know it's a different entity, or at the Conrad Center?
That's a compelling resource sharing thing. I like it.
Okay. All right.
We meet a lot as venue operators, and we have found that those monthly meetings, help us resource share in other ways. So yeah, I think the more it's a tough time right now, right? I think the more collaborative we are, the better.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's all the questions. Thank you, Matt and Karen. Thank you not only for the work you do at GLA, but also obviously, as Matt put it, holding down the fort when we really needed you. So it's much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions of staff? Councillor Ennis of staff? No. Councillor Singh of staff?
Yeah, Jeremy, so just want to focus on a couple of things coming from the discussion and the delegates' comments back. One is, of course, on the update, perhaps a year from this date, that would still give us enough time to engage with staff and also seeing what challenges do lie or where the successes are. Do staff have any concern to request for an update from staff on that?
Mr. Duke, go ahead.
Awesome. Through the chair, absolutely. I think the transparency that Matt and Karen spoke to and Sam referenced in his comments totally leans into bringing feedback to council in terms of KPIs, in terms of the mentorship services. I think it's really important that over communication is probably the best strategy moving forward.
Yeah, I like that, over communication. The later part is about the promotion and the visibility of our Kitchener citizens to know what's happening inside of that dynamic space. I know that there's a lot behind the scenes that your team is currently involved with. Where do you see that level of support that could be provided so we can enable themselves to absolutely succeed?
Through the chair, when I was bringing my thank yous at the start of the presentation, it wasn't lip service. It was heartfelt in the sense that in the development of the culture and entertainment team, one of the mandates was to investigate how to better centralize promotion, whether it's event calendar. There'll be a look at the ticketing services piece with the Center on the Square in collaboration with the other venues, weighing in with the needs of the presenters as well. So that's going to be a big project that will be starting off. We're bringing in a new team member next Monday, in fact, and so that will be on their plate to really kind of work through that process of how can we, again, that collaboration, not just from a cliche perspective, but just from a real collaborative perspective, how can we make this a strong city?
I appreciate your commitment and transparency and really giving that information back to council and the community of exactly what's transpired with the support. Where do you see, what's the metric of success though?
I think what Matt and Karen spoke to in terms of, and Sam mentioned it too, utilization is critical. And I do also agree with what Sam was commenting about in terms of finding the right team. You can't have a functional organization without the best people, and I think that's where it's going to start. But in terms of KPIs, I also think that it was very loud and clear in terms of equitable access. So it's not all maybe the familiar faces that we're used to seeing. Maybe it's, which emerging artists are we bringing in, or, which different types of event types, whether it's genre of performing arts, comedy, film, music. I think we're going to have to develop that together. But yeah, in terms of the mission piece, though, I'm just reading off the slide. The KPIs for equity, utilization, artist participation, and attendance will be 4 of the keys for sure.
Good. I'm not asking a question, so you don't have to add to this. It's more of a comment.
Yeah.
I would really hope that the driver factor is also, you said it, equity, but again, reflection of our changing community, of what's being presented in that space as well. Thanks.
And just I will answer the question because it's fun. Councillor Ayo, I was chatting with him this past week, and one of the things, I was actually on the phone with our manager of Arts and Creative Industries, Andre Hallam, and he was sharing about a Nigerian comedian who would love to use the space, and the issue of cost came up, and I think that what Matt and Karen were speaking to with the city as an impartial operator, looking at ways at reducing the rental cost and allowing for up-and-coming comedians, regardless of ethnicity, but to use the space, I think is very important.
Thank you. Questions of staff? I have up Councillor Chapman. Question of staff? Go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you for your report. Can you just tell us what the condition of the facility is right now? Like the sound system was mentioned, but can you just sort of give us an overview?
So, and Andrew Kidd, our new supervisor of culture and entertainment facilities, is here today as well. So we're currently going through that process of evaluation, working closely with Matt and Karen and their team to go through the different steps. But if I was summarizing, and a lot of this also is based on user feedback through the presenters, theatrical sound and theatrical lighting are 2 points of emphasis. Seating is a point of emphasis. Staging is a point of emphasis, and also there's maybe some more cosmetic things just to kind of create that sense of place. A lot, I think it was Matt who said that, or maybe Karen, that there's a lot of audience members who, after a performance is passed, they'll realize, oh shoot, I missed it. And I think a lot of that has to do with just the kind of the view from the street. People, they'll see the awning, they'll see the marquee, but they won't necessarily know that there's a theater there. So maybe more cosmetic things like enhanced lobby space with maybe view from the lobby to the street, maybe an enhancement that might be necessary as well. So long way of answering the question is that we're reviewing it.
And will this be something that will come to us during budget time, this time around? Yeah?
Correct, yes.
Okay, great. My other question had to do with the mentorship arrangement. Right now, it's slated to continue for the next 2 years. What do you see happening at that point?
Thanks for asking that, because in my effort to be under the 30-second mark, I flipped through the slide where I had my chance to thank Greenlight Arts for their phenomenal service. And I think even more important than my feedback is the feedback from other presenting groups who have echoed the fact that, and they've reassured that the Greenlight Arts group has been a phenomenal support, not only in the interim, but also kind of balancing that authenticity of their own art and then supporting others in their art. And so from a mentorship perspective, I think there's also a chance to have educational opportunities. And so, again, it's going to be, if council approves the recommendations, the first step will be to outline some of those expectations and scope in the agreement of service for those mentorship services. And I think through that process, which will be built on trust and transparency, I think then after that we can kind of evaluate what's working. And Matt mentioned, for some groups, Matt mentioned empty space. They may not need the type of mentorship service that another, emerging comedian from Nigeria might need.
Right. Okay, good. My last question has to do with the symphony. Do you foresee any future use of this space by the symphony? Different, of course, to what it's been in the past, but have they been approached or have you approached them?
We did engage through the consultation process and had some conversations with them about potential future use. I know staff have been working through their group as they're going through their different reiterations of life, and I think it's exciting to see what could come in the future, and we're looking forward to, of course, working with them and speaking with them about opportunities to use the space.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Schneider, you have a question of staff? Comment? Okay, so there's no more questions of staff, so we'll get into comments now, and first up is Councillor Stretch.
Great, thank you so much. I just wanted to say thank you, and it wasn't lost on me that I heard the word trust many times today, both from our delegates and from our staff. I wasn't expecting to feel so many emotions during your delegation. You guys presented very well. I wanted to say that I was in attendance and for one of the Lake Company performances and was astonished not only by your talents, but the way the theater runs. So thank you for saying yes to see us through this time and for becoming, Jack or Jills of all trades. And not only just performing, but being able to do all the behind the scenes work. I thank you for your commitment to community. And I wanted to also say, this morning, early this morning, I started reading Max Weinman's Compassionate Imagination. And one of the things that, I guess one of the theses to the book is that arts are a critical part to a functioning democracy. So I really hear your pleas to how this fits in not only just to an arts community, but to the entire community. So thank you to staff and our delegates.
Thank you. Guys, just a time check. We are approaching the end of time allocated for this. We do have a potentially very long special council, and I have, I think, 7 people with that want to comment on this, so I could only ask if you could try to be succinct in your comments. I'd appreciate it. Next up is Councillor Ioannidis.
Thank you, Chair Davey. I just want to thank Karen and Matt. I just remember the early days when you first came in, and we all looked much younger back then. But I mean, your passion has never wavered, and your commitment to our community has never wavered. And no pun intended, but thanks for not bringing the drama to this. It's the vision of this facility that's been brought forward by our staff. It fits in with our strategic alignment and why we created the department that Jeremy and the rest are, working towards this common goal. And Kitchener, it helps Kitchener just like GLLA and JM Drama. We're mighty mouses. We punch above our weight, and it's not lost on me. And with where staff have been working with this and how we've, this has been a vision for some time, and I'm starting to see the pieces come together, and which is great because it's been a while. So thank you, and thanks to staff, and you've done a terrific job with bringing this forward.
Thank you. Up next is Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Davey. I'm not surprised, but I'm so appreciative that we've heard the word trust and transparency from our staff and our arts community in these discussions. It's fantastic. Seeing the work that's been done here, the cooperation, the arts community coming together, it's really inspiring. Sam, you've been a favorite of mine since day one, sitting on the Arts and Culture Committee when I first was elected, just seeing your passion and your drive for the arts, and Matt and Karen getting to know you through Greenlight Arts and the great work that you've done. I really want to thank each of you for the great work that you've done. You go way beyond what you need to do. There's a care and passion, and I think you're lifting others in our community up. So I just want to thank you for that. Thank our staff for this great work. I know this is the starting point, and it's only going to go up from here. It would be so cool to see, we've got an innovation district. It'd be great to see an arts district somewhere clumped together downtown. It would be awesome. So we'll work on that another day, but thanks for the great work on this.
Thank you, Councillor Schneider. Up next is Mayor Rabinovich.
Well, thanks very much. And I too want to begin by, first of all, thanking staff for the immense amount of work that has gone into this since, originally the Conrad family approached us to make the donation of the facility to the city of Kitchener. Recently I had the opportunity with some members of staff to sit down with the family and thank them again for their generous donation to the city, but also to bring them up to speed with the work that we've been doing, both in terms of the creation of this new division, the work that we're doing in terms of an arts and culture strategy, and obviously the piece as it relates to the Conrad Center for the Performing Arts. But for me, this is really exciting because when I originally ran for council some years ago, one of the reasons I ran was the work that JM Drama was doing to try to preserve what was then the St. Jerome's Theatre. And sadly, that building got lost to fire, where that theater was. But today we now will see two amazing groups running two amazing community facilities going forward, assuming that this goes forward today, which I believe it will be, and certainly I will be supporting wholeheartedly. Often we talk about arts and culture from the perspective of the role it plays in economic development, but more importantly, as has been pointed out, it plays an incredible role in terms of the quality of life of our residents. And that, for me, is extremely important. And a piece of that, as has been noted, is the role that it also plays in terms of our democracy. And I think it's fair to say with, many of the things that we see happening around us, including, the cuts to media and so on, the important role that this can play to look for the things that bind us as society as opposed to the things that drive us apart. Arts and culture can play a really important role in this, and I think this is just another step in that direction. So I'm pleased to support it, and hoping that this will be a unanimous decision of council. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Councillor Chapman.
Thank you. I remember that swimming pool on the stage and many other performances by the theatre and company. And I've been to the Registry Theatre many times and the Conrad Center, so really thank you for what you do. I want to thank you for what you've brought to the community over the years, and look forward to seeing what lies ahead for the Conrad Center and the theatre, the Registry Theatre, and the positive contribution that both will give to the arts and culture communities here in the region. And of course, thank you to staff for the work that you've done. So, thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Singh.
Yeah, I think Mayor Rabinovich summarized it really perfectly, and I'll just say I agree with all of his sentiments. Just add on top, a community has grown and thrived in spite of various challenges over the years. Because of collaboration. I think that's been the cornerstone of what Kitchener is, what Kitchener means, to collaborate and figure out small solutions that lead to and evolve to something more. If you look at the various different success stories of tech companies growing and maturing in our region to being a global brand. So it's important to enable and support in the arts in those early stages as well. Who knows where that production is going to lead to? But enabling and giving them space where they can showcase and broaden whatever that performance is, that plays in part of the economic development. Because as they go outside of a region, it will be reflective of where their origin story started from, and that in itself creates the positive image of what Kitchener is and continues to be. So I think this is a good model. Again, there is a lot on the line in ensuring that it can be successful. I continue to say, not to be dampening that positive sentiment, but again, there's only so much that can be placed on the Kitchener tax base, because again, being the larger municipality, we do take the bulk of the support of our arts and culture community. And having those organizations to be more sustainable within themselves allows us to take risks on other things as well, where we should absolutely continue to look to also. So yeah, absolutely happy to support this.
Thank you. That's all the comments. Thank you to the couple that queued out for time. I think everything was said quite well. I would just add, in addition to the trust and transparency that I heard from the delegates, the other thing I heard, I believe, was that you felt valued by our staff, which is really important and excellent to hear. And to our staff, again, this is well thought out, well laid out, and we're looking forward to see how it plays out. And I'm seeing Councillor Singh forgot to say something. Councillor Singh, go ahead.
No, I didn't forget to say something. Well, I did. The amendment in requesting staff to report back 1 year from now. I'm hoping that, Councillor Ioannidis, you're okay with that as an amendment?
He doesn't have to be okay with it in theory, but it's a separate amendment, but yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, no problem.
No, I was going to say if he just wants to include it within his motion. Yeah.
Direction to staff, okay, so we'll include it, yeah. That only makes sense. So let's vote on the one thing then. So as moved by Councillor Ioannidis, those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Good work. And that also concludes Finance and Corporate Services Committee. I believe our clerks are going to need a couple minutes to switch over to special counsel, but we'll be starting right afterwards. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.